What is going on? You are listening to TAGSPodcast, aka Talk About Gay Sex Podcast. I am your host, Steve V. This is episode 536, alongside Jeremy Ross Lopez. How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. And of course, joining us, the one and only Kodi Maurice Doggette. How the hell you doing, Kodi?
Hello, darlings. I'm wonderful. I'm happy to be here with y'all.
Nice. Good. Well, let's get into it. So much to talk about. Over the weekend, I thought it'd be fun to share this little story. On Saturday night, I went to the Eagle here in New York City and had a bunch of fun there, which is no surprise because there's always fun to be had there. But I ended up running into an acquaintance of mine, and he had the crazy idea towards the end of the night to say, do you want to host a little after party? And my dumbass was like, okay. And he's so social that he was inviting people. I was like, hold on a minute. I was like wondering what my apartment looked like. I was like, are we really doing this? And about 15 people later, we
Oh my God.
I know. And it was not early either. It was the end of the night. And all I could keep thinking of was my neighbors. That's going to be like insane. But these boys were professionals in every way. They brought all the mixers and they found my little music box speaker and put on their music. They put something on the TV that they thought that would be fun to watch. They changed the lighting. I mean, these were like professionals that knew what they were doing.
It's like that scene out of Tu Wong Fu almost, like where they decorate. That's so funny to me.
Exactly. It was kind of like that. And I was just kind of impressed. I have to say, everybody was really respectful, and it was a good group of gay guys, mostly talking. I had some fun with some of the boys. There were some couples in the room. Sometimes we'd make it into my bedroom. Sometimes stuff was happening in the front sexually. There was a set of, I'll tell you in a minute because we're going to talk about open relationships in a little bit. So I'll tell you more about some of the actual shenanigans that went down. But I have to say, for impromptu after party, it actually went down okay. Nothing was missing when everybody left. Of course, there was a jockstrap to be found on the floor that somebody left. And cleanup wasn't that bad, I have to say. Cleanup on aisle 4 was just fine. So not bad, though. But Jeremy, we used to have some after parties here back in the day. What's your memories of those? And is it a good idea to have an after party, or is it usually a bad idea?
I think it's kind of like total 50-50. Most of the time, it's fun and you need to have it in the moment. But then also on the devil side of it, it's like sometimes the worst decision to make. So I think overall, we have like really fun memories of it. I don't remember any that were 15 people, but they were always a little bit more intimate than that and definitely fun and good conversation. Sometimes you make like good friends out of it and just have like hot fun.
I agree.
And they were all over the place. Like sometimes it was nothing sexual at all. It's like just dressing people up and like some of your fun leather pieces and like trying on harnesses and stuff that some of the people have never like done before or don't own. So that was always fun too.
I 100% agree with you. It's the party you didn't think you needed to have. You probably don't need to have, but in the moment you must have it. And
Exactly.
I went with it. It's not something I want to do all the time because I often need the next day to happen. And so, when you're up that late, but it can be a lot of fun. And like I said, this was a true mixture of people just hanging out, didn't want the party to end, chit-chatting, music, some sexcapades happening here and there. And I don't know, it was a nice mix, I would say. And like I said, everybody was really respectful, and that was kind of cool. How do you weigh in on the after party, Kodi? And is it a good idea or nope, not for you?
I love a nice after party moment. I was just reminiscing about the last one that I had, and it was a while ago. I'm sitting here feeling like a grandpa now, just even thinking about how long ago it was. And I'm thinking I need to have another one. So I don't know when you're down for another after party hangout, Steve, but let's make it happen
2028.
because let's put it on the calendar. 2028, here we come, right?
Okay, we could definitely do that. Absolutely.
Maybe we
It's
can
one of
slip one in before that, though.
We could try. Yeah. I mean, I think part of the fun of these is that they're often impromptu, and that's
Yeah,
what makes
like
them
spontaneous. I think sometimes too much planning makes it less fun.
correct. And it's
Yeah.
about like the night and that kind of thing. But we'll hang and we'll see. You never know. Anything
Yeah,
can
it's
happen.
gonna be on my to-do list. I trust me. We're gonna make it happen.
I like it. I like it. Okay. Well, I love a good response. And last week I was talking about a listener that put a review up on Apple Podcasts. And, when you speak, I love a good rebuttal and a reply back. And this person changed his response. I'm talking about the person that wrote in last week that said, me personally, Steve V, host, is made his show all about his OnlyFans and seems to be talking about it as an ad now. And I, of course, clapped back, but we did so constructively, I think. And wouldn't you know it? And I also had some other friends write some reviews on there because I got some good advice that, well, one way to combat this is have your friends or have some friends write good reviews so it'll push that one down. I'm like, oh, that's so
Yeah.
smart. And so I did do that. But I noticed he wrote back, and here's what he said: Tags is an enjoyable podcast that touches a wide range of topics. They're open to feedback, even if sassy when taking it. Sexy Poppy Steve V has hot content online, and it's nice to hear what's coming. And it's great that he learned that you don't need to repeat the handle every time it comes up. The hustle is real, and repetition of how to find the different endeavors had gotten a little overboard, but it seems like they might be keeping the deets to the end while making it a sexy tease. Just that is enough to be tempting without smacking you with the business too much. And thank you, AW Boy 914, for revising that. That's nice, and I like this back and forth. So yay to that. Love it when you guys talk back to us. It's always
Oh
good.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, over the weekend, something big was happening in Vegas. And no, it wasn't the Grammys. No, it wasn't the Academy Awards, which are coming up. It was the Gay VN Awards 2024, happening in Las Vegas, like I said. And many of the top winners were Austin Wolf, Raheem Shabazz, Drake Vaughn, and more stars. It wrapped up in Las Vegas and had plenty of awards to a fresh group of talented adult entertainers. Looked like a lot of fun. Between the best of and fan voted awards, many porn stars walked away with trophies in Sin City. And just before the winners were announced at the resorts, Out caught up with some of them. And who they talked to were people like Raheem Shabazz, who was a big winner of the night. He took home the coveted Performer of the Year. And if you remember, guys, last year he reached the over 1 million followers on Twitter. And he was very grateful that the hard work is paying off. Quote, please don't make me blush. I had to be the first. It's like when Serena went for that grand slam. It's a goal, Shabazz told Out. Austin Wolf always continued to prove his popularity and won 2 of the fan voted awards, favorite Dom and favorite porn star creator. He just says he's dedicated to his work. He wants to be a good example, especially around groups. If you're hustling, it shows models what is possible for them, and it's about setting a bar and showing that there is no glass ceiling. There is no limit. I personally feel like I've done that, and I hope others follow. Also, people that won were Derek Cage, who was Best Newcomer and Best Leading Actor. Also winning, rounding out the night with names like Max Connor, who's become a gay VN darling. The entertainer took home Performer of the Year award back in 2022, but he continues his streak, and he's just happy to be a part of the whole shenanigans. This is great. I love the positive influence that they do at this award show. I mean, Jeremy, do any of these names resonate with you? And what do you think of these awards that are happening year after year that are putting them more on the map?
I think they're great, and it sounds like a super fun event. I would love to attend it one year just to visit and meet or see some of the people that win. And a lot of the names sound familiar. I actually saw the one of the performers that I love from the Palace, Fantasia Royale,
Oh.
was on the red carpet at that Gay VN Awards, and she wore a dress that said uh, "Big Dick, Big Dick Girl." I'm gonna send you
Ooh.
guys the picture because it's hilarious, and she's a trans performer that has like the biggest boobs I think I've ever seen.
Nice. Oh, I love.
Love
Yeah,
Let's go
her.
next year, you guys. That would be fun. If we put this on our
right?
radar now, I think we could
I w-
go. And absolutely.
yeah, I would
Kodi,
love to go. I feel like I would get in a lot of trouble there. I just have to say.
absolutely. What do you think about, like, I think representation really is a big deal these days, and we're seeing more of it with Raheem, surpassing the 1 million mark on X, or Twitter as it was formerly called, Max Connor making a huge plug. What do you think about the diversity that we're also seeing too in the industry, Kodi?
I think it's amazing and it's long overdue. I think that Raheem Shabazz winning Performer of the Year this year, and he's the third Black person to win this, and D'Angelo Jackson and Max Connor won as well. So I think it's great. I think that it really shows that Gavian is committed to diversity, and I just need to see more of it. You can never have enough diversity because we come in all colors and all shapes and sizes. So the more the merrier, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just see the picture you're talking about Fantasia Royale. Is it Fantasia Royale? Is that the whole name?
Gaga, Fantasia
Gaga.
Royale Gaga. Yeah.
And those titties are huge, big dick girl. Nice. Wow. They are. I love that.
She's
Yes.
gorgeous. I love her.
Yeah, so she's super sweet, and one of our mutual friends introduced me to her at Palace, and
Oh.
she performs there and does a lot of like strip tease and stuff, and it's just so hilarious to see the people's reactions.
Love it. Well,
Yeah.
kudos to all the winners, nominees. You guys are making an impact, and we're here for it. Let's stay in celebrity land for a minute here. And The Last of Us, Pedro Pascal, who is the hot daddy of 2023 and seems to be carrying his reign into 2024. I don't know if you guys watched the show Looking. I was a huge fan of it. Did you guys watch it by any chance?
Yes, I did.
I
Okay.
loved Looking. It was so
I
good.
loved it too. I don't know if did you like it, Jeremy?
I thought it was all right. I mean, it. I felt like it had a little bit of like depressing to it, and
Hmm.
I don't know. The outlook seemed a little like not dark, but like negative based off of like hookup culture and all of that, but it was cute and I liked it. It definitely wasn't like my favorite gay show.
Got it. Yeah. No. And
I
I.
kind of like when they're a little bit more uplifting. Like for me, Pose was like a magical show and it took you on a journey of like ups and downs and like real life things, and I liked the characters in this. I don't know, it wasn't my favorite for sure.
It was definitely moodier for sure. I
Yeah.
tend to like a little bit of that. I was a huge fan, and sadly, we only got 2 seasons of it, plus a movie. There's
Hmm.
talk of maybe some sort of reboot on some level, which I would be here for. But did you know this? Pedro Pascal was almost going to be cast in the series, which would have been amazing. I'm assuming it would have been for for the character of, I'm trying to
Murray
think,
Bartlett played.
Murray Bartlett's character. I would think it
Ah.
would have been Dom that would have been cast in it. And Russell Tovey, who was cast in it, remember he was the love interest of Patrick, Jonathan Groff's character. Russell also was going to auditioned for the Jonathan Groff character at one point, but at the last
Mm.
minute they went in the different direction, and I think they went well with a more innocent version, Jonathan Groff's character. But the casting directors at the time had said that they really loved Russell, and if it got picked up, they would put him in, and they did, and he was the boyfriend. But yes, I mean, this was at a time when Pedro was auditioning for a ton of shows, and ultimately they put him in Narcos, which I watched, and that's how I
Oh,
learned about Pedro. And oh my gosh, he was so good in that. But I think he would have been great in this. And it's kind of fun. Casting is so important, though. It can make or break characters. And while I love Pedro, I'm assuming he was going to go because the article did not say if he was going for the Murray Bartlett character. But just, I mean, I think we can all deduce that that's probably the character he was going to go for, the more daddy role of all of them. And it would have been a different role. He probably would have done a good job. But I loved Murray so much. Casting's
yeah.
so important though, because Jeremy, like I know how much of a fan you are of AbFab, but at one
Mm-hmm.
point, Patsy wasn't. It was going to be by Jennifer Saunders' partner, Don French, and Don
Oh,
French
really?
was her longtime partner. They used to do these skits and TV shows in Britain for years. And Don French penned the role alongside Jennifer Saunders of Absolutely Fabulous. And because they had always been partners, she was just going to be the likely Patsy. But she kind of realized maybe she wouldn't be exactly right for it. And that's when they went on a casting search and ultimately got the one and only, I mean, the Patsy that we know, that we adore. And so I just think casting can be so important and makes a big difference. I mean, I don't know, Jeremy, what do you think about when you hear some of these bits of like Sex in the City? Somebody was going to play this person, but ultimately we got this.
I honestly think it's crazy, and a lot of times you can't picture like the people who they would have casted previously, and sometimes it's like good not to know, just
Right.
because then they get like flack for people not wanting that person to be the lead, or like replacing the person that they loved so much in that part.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, years ago, I there was a movie that I loved so much. I made you watch. It was with Michelle Pfeiffer, and it was she plays a chanteuse singer. It was in the '80s. I'm trying to think of the movie because I love it so much. I have a still of it.
Is she
The
singing on a
fabulous
piano?
Yes, the Fabulous Baker Boys,
That's
and
what it
it's
is.
with
Yep.
the two brothers in real life, Jeff and Beau Bridges, and it's probably one of my favorite movies. I just adore it. And later, I had found out that Madonna was trying to get that role of Michelle Pfeiffer. And you know how much I love Madonna, but
Hmm.
after careful thought, thinking about it, I still think they casted it right with Michelle Pfeiffer. And while Madonna probably would have did a good job of it, I just think that Susie Diamond was meant to be played by Michelle Pfeiffer. And don't you love that name, Susie Diamond? It's just fabulous.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, Cody, what do you think about casting when you hear some of these things? I mean, you're such a fan of comics. You must hear about this all the time.
Oh yeah, I think it's you can't really replicate a lot of chemistry that's out there, so I think that that is what it should come down to. And I know that all of these people that we have mentioned before, that we've been talking about, I think that a lot of them have shown that they have the right makeup for what is going on. Maybe in a different world, an alternate universe, we could have seen Madonna play in the Fabulous Baker Boys or Pedro Pascal play in Looking, and it would have been wonderful, but I'm glad that we got what we got, and they're making these wise decisions out there.
Exactly. I mean, Matt Bomer was also slated to play Ken. And maybe now, since, the lead actor got a nomination for best supporting actor, maybe now he's kicking himself. But fellow travelers is amazing, and I think
Yeah.
he made the right decision to do that. So it's just luck of the draw, and timing is everything, is the one thing the article mentions, schedules and all that kind of stuff. But yeah. Staying on, there's a show on Netflix that, if you haven't watched it, it's a British series. I'm wondering, Jeremy, if you watched Fool Me Once. Have you seen it?
Yes, I loved it.
Oh my goodness. Kodi, you've got to watch Fool Me Once.
I'm adding it to the list right now.
Cody's list is like into next year for what he needs to watch.
So,
It's an
I did watch.
And he's sitting here watching Mahogany, which he's seen
Thank you.
7,000
Standing around.
times.
But I did watch what's it called? The one with the
Saltburn?
Saltburn. Yes, I watched Saltburn. So that's checked off the list. But now I got to
Oh,
watch
great.
Rustin and this
Yeah.
Fool Me Once is what it's called.
Yes.
Fool Me
Okay.
Once. It's on, and it's actually got it's Harlan Coben's best-selling book, and Harlan's books have include things like The Stranger and a lot of shows that I really like. Very layered. I loved the lead character. I thought she was amazing. Did you love her,
Yeah, she really
Jeremy?
was. She was beautiful and she was a great actress.
Right, exactly. And speaking of Patsy, she played
Oh,
the
yeah, the evil villain.
matriarch, the evil bitch in it, unlike we've ever seen her before. Joanna Lumley, she was so good in it, but
Yeah.
it's layered. It's one of those that you can totally snuggle up and just get into it. You have to pay attention, but it's really good. But one of the characters in there, Dino Fetscher, has recently opened up about the reason his character in the series was important for gay representation. And we won't give away too much, but he plays sort of a sidekick, a police detective, and he is very good looking in real life. In general, I mean, he plays a junior detective, Marty McGregor, and opposite DS Sammy Kierce, his character, played by Adil Akhtar. And there's a point in, this isn't giving away too much, where Marty's character comes out, and it's very subtle. They're in the car and he's discussing a date that he went on, and Kierce, his partner, is like, "Oh, what was she like?" How? And he's like, "Oh, it was a he," and it's very subtle. He says, working with someone as well established as DS Sammy Kierce, and the reveal of me coming out to him really moves our story forward and bonds us and builds that trust. Fetcher reflects on this journey, and he says the way the scene unfolded was important to him in constructing positive LGBTQ representation, helping to kind of move the needle forward in depicting gay characters on screen. And I have to agree, it was done very subtle. I loved that moment. I actually remember that. And oftentimes in these, you don't remember everything in it,
Hmm.
but that scene, do you remember that scene vividly, Jeremy?
Yeah, it was really a nice scene, and it was a nice way for him to just come out to his work partner.
Right. And it was treated in a way that wasn't, oh my gosh, she's gay. Now everything has to be about you're gay. It's just, no, no, it's just gay. That's it. I didn't go out with a woman. Let's say I was a guy. And it's not that serious. And I think it was really good. A little bit about the actor Fetcher. He's appeared in Russell T Davies' show, Cucumber and Years and Years. And little sidebar on him, he was crowned Mr. Gay UK back in
Oh,
2008. And that he later moved into acting, and he was nominated for Celebrity Rising Star at the British LGBT Awards in 2017. So he's one to keep your eye on. He's really sexy too, I think, Jeremy. I mean, very sexy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Super tall and hot.
Yes. So, Kodi, I mean, you haven't seen it, but will you watch this? And what do you think about like the scene on what he's essentially saying?
yes. It's already in the queue, number one. So I plan to on being prepared for next episode where we discuss it further, and I can't wait to give you guys my review. I do think it's really great that we've come so far as coming out is concerned, and the progression that this show kind of shows, because it's, from what I understand, I feel like it's very, it's just, it's not in your face. I feel like is that the right
Yeah.
word I'm looking for? Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
great.
Exactly. I just think we're at a place now where there's subtlety on layers of different types of characters that can be gay, that can be non binary, that can be trans, and they're laced in our entertainment now. And it's just normalizing this. So I think it's really beautiful. And my eye is on him because He is super sexy, Mr. Dino Fetscher. Okay. Sadly, over the holidays, there was an apparent overdose death of two beloved DC gay men. But the twist is it's triggered a powerful response in DC. LGBTQ bars are offering training, distribution of Narcan, fentanyl testing kits, and more. And sources familiar with DC's LGBTQ nightlife say the widespread reports on social media of the sudden and unexpected deaths of two widely known and beloved gay men from an apparent accidental drug overdose that happened on December 27th at one of the men's home has triggered an outcry for the city and the community to become more aggressive in addressing the opioid overdose problem and how it is impacting our community. And DC Police and Fire Emergency Medical Services reports that prominent DC attorney and LGBTQ rights supporter Brandon Roman, who was 38, and historic preservation expert and home renovation business owner Robert Robbie Barletta, who was only 28, were both found unconscious when police and emergency medical personnel arrived at Barletta's house on the afternoon of December 27th. And what has been a tragedy and still remains a tragedy, I think what's really amazing is they're going to be honoring these two February 3rd. Those in the DC area come to honor their lives in your best sparkles and shimmer. It's going to be a Saturday, February 3rd from 5 to 8 at Shakers. And it's also been a huge cry for knowledge and things like fentanyl strips and Narcan distribution, which many of the bars are going to start having display tables. So, like when you go out, so to know, it's one thing to know that Narcan can help somebody that's in a fentanyl emergency, but how do you even use it? I mean, you know, I guess you just give the shot. But the education, I think, really needs to be out there. I think that this is finally a call to action so that we don't just see more and more of deaths happen like this. We can't keep losing people to these unwanted overdoses. And fentanyl seems to be one of the major things that we're seeing. How important do you think this is to see more education, Jeremy, when you hear a story like this that's so sad? And, you know, we don't want their lives to be lost in vain. We want to remember them. But how important do you think this education is to be seen in the nightlife scene now?
I think it's really important just so that people really understand the gravity of what they're putting into their bodies, and then also just the fact that a lot of things aren't exactly what you paid for or laced, and just not trustworthy, and just really underlying not good for you. And I think that that's really good to get knowledge out there to people that don't know the details of exactly what they're doing for extracurricular activities.
Exactly. I 100% agree. I mean, over the weekend, I was talking to some people that said there was one, maybe even more, but one in particular of a death on the current Atlantis cruise. And a
What?
sister was trying to find out some more information about her brother. I mean, the cruise barely docked yesterday, and she was just trying to get any information of how did he die? Maybe not so much how did he die, but was he alone? And somebody wrote something in a response back to her saying that he was on the dance floor and he had taken an ecstasy tab, like one ecstasy tab, but sadly it was laced with fentanyl. These are things that people do all the time in that, you know, we're not talking like major doses of any drug. It's like one tablet could kill you, Kodi. And when you hear something like this, my goodness, are we in a state of emergency?
Definitely. I don't want to villainize, any type of extracurricular, you know, substances or anything like that. But every time I hear a story like this, I think that it's way too far. We keep seeing too many people die from this, and it's completely, I don't want to say unnecessary, but I'm going to say unnecessary because there's something that you can use to prevent whether or not you take this drug and you are and it's laced with fentanyl. It's becoming way too rampant, and I think that we all need to take the proper steps if you're going to imbibe to actually protect yourself and make sure that you are doing it as safe as possible, because there's always the chance that you could overdose, but that's much less as long as you know what's actually in it. And this just makes me so sad.
It makes me sad too. And like I said, a lot of these cases that we're hearing about aren't like people went on this, which would be a totally different story. And we're not causing shame on anybody, but it's not like mounds and mounds of drugs that these people are doing. Often it's like a tablet or that is laced, or a
Wow.
powder that they did a few bumps here and there that
Yeah,
were
it's really
laced.
like just the mixings of like the stuff that's really terrible for your body.
Right. And people nowadays, you can actually get fentanyl strips to test your drugs. And you can even get them on Amazon. They're very cheap to get those strips. It's so worth it to get those and to do that due diligence for yourself and whomever is imbibing to test your drugs. And they will tell you pretty accurately whether or not something that you are interested in trying is potentially laced with it. And obviously you wouldn't want to do it if it is laced with it. No, you can't just trust anybody, and you can't just get something from somebody and assume, because they might not know. And
Yeah.
sadly, we are in a state of crisis right now where fentanyl is being laced in every which way you turn. And so it's like, you've got to just, I like that DC, and they're really contacting the bars where people are out and about and educating, because knowledge really is power. I say it all the time. It's cliche, but it's true. And it's something to just know what you are taking, and there are
Yeah.
tools out there.
You know what? Something just crossed my mind. What if they even started putting them in the clubs like they used to do the condoms all the time? I know it's kind of silently and softly advocating for, recreational drug use, but I think it's much better than the alternative of people dying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. They could do two different things. They could pass out those, like you just said, and then the bar could be equipped with Narcan and have, I'm sure they're doing this already now in many of the
Hmm.
bars, where they're educating staff that if you see somebody going into some sort of shock, you can potentially administer this. And so hopefully it could be a two-parter. And then maybe more people will carry around that if they see something. I had we have a friend in the Bay Area that she saw somebody in Oakland going through some sort of shock, and she literally ran to find Narcom,
Hmm.
and handed it to somebody, and they had it administered immediately, saved that person's life. And it
Wow.
was, yeah. And she acted. You have to act quickly when you see something like this. So I'm glad DC is doing the right thing, and I hope other bars will continue to, they're kind of at the epicenter, clubs and bars. And so, this is the state we're in right now. Okay, moving on to a Quebec couple that was shocked after a doctor allegedly blamed a chronic pain on their sex life. Yeah, you heard me right. There was a couple that they say they're triggered and traumatized after a recent meeting with a doctor who allegedly accused them of spreading sexually transmitted infections because they are gay. Drake Jensen and Michael Morin, who have been married for 17 years, say they were attending their first ever appointment with a family doctor in their hometown last Thursday. And they allege the doctor, who was chosen not to name at the time because there's no legal ramifications just yet, but Jensen's a Canadian singer and a well-known advocate for the community. And he says the doctor started the appointment by looking at their charts and telling him and his husband, "I see you have condyloma." And I said, I don't know that word, Warren explained, adding that he had previously seen a doctor to have a skin tag surgically removed from a sensitive area. Well, they later realized condyloma, also known as genital warts, is a sexually transmitted infection caused by HPV. And Warren affirms he has never been diagnosed with that, but the couple states the doctor did not do a physical exam. And Jensen says he brushed over the accusations so he could explain the reason for his visit, which was chronic back pain that has plagued him for over a decade. And he said, I said the pain radiates everywhere in my sit bones. And he said, oh, you have a burning pain in your rectum? Like he went there. And then
What?
Jensen tells the news he looked at Michael, who was sitting in the chair, and he said, well, you have penile warts. You probably have sex with him, and you gave him HPV. Your problem is HPV. Well, they felt so disturbed and violated, they had to leave immediately. And, they're pursuing this, but it's crazy to think that I feel for them, but I think if I was in a relationship, I would do a little more due diligence. Maybe in Quebec, they don't have LGBTQ doctors, right? But this is super violating.
Or manners, really? Like,
Or-
what? Who says
Yeah,
that?
I know. They deduced the fact that they didn't think this doctor wanted to see them and he was trying to get them out of their office because he didn't feel like treating them, which speaks to a larger issue of our community being turned away for treatment that we need. And so that's like a larger issue. But Jeremy, when you hear something like this and when you think about your own experiences with your medical practitioners, what's your thoughts?
I think it's like crazy and really out of line, and I can't even imagine being treated like that. But at the same time, there are parts of our world that are still divided, regardless of other areas advancing in being open and inclusive and just learning and educating themselves on other people's communities and what goes on in them. And I mean, it's crazy that they experience that together.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, here, Cody, you go in with your partner trying to just treat one issue. And I mean, I've been not to this a level, but when I was trying to see something, I had a fistula. I've told about this on the show before. It's not new
Mhm.
news. This is a while ago. And my general practitioner, whom I really like, had referred me out because it wasn't his expertise. And I'll never forget I could describe the desk and the old school manner of it. That's besides the point, but he was just really not helpful and was painted a picture that was really devastating for me. I walked out of that office not feeling great. Ultimately, I
Mhm.
did find a surgeon that took good care of me and it was a success. But, bedside manner and who you see is super important.
Oh, definitely. I've been going to the same doctor for 15 years, 14 years. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but he has always been very welcoming and warm, and he listens, which I think is the most important thing as far as healthcare professionals are concerned. And I think that because of this, I'm willing to tell him more and more things and be really open about my sex life, about what's going on with me. And he has never just assumed that because I'm a gay man, I mean, he's a gay man too, but he's never just assumed that because I'm a gay man, I have any of these things that could be considered to be associated with being a gay person. And I think that that is something that also makes me feel really warm. I cannot imagine going into somebody's office and them placing a stigma on me that might not even be true. And just because I'm gay and I have a partner, I have HPV or genital warts, that sounds insane. And that man should be disbarred, honestly. Is it disbarred, or he should get his license taken away?
Absolutely. And you're so right. And your description on that, too. I mean, as you were speaking, I was feeling how I felt after leaving the story that I previously told. And, we look up to our practitioners and the schooling and the knowledge that they possess, and we take their word as gospel often. And I remember leaving the office, walking the long walk home, and I remember my sister was staying with me, and I almost had to do a couple loops before I walked into my apartment because it was so heavy on my what his words had such an impact on me in a negative way. I almost felt like
Mhm.
life is over, and I didn't know if I could see my sister after that because she would be. I couldn't explain all this to her, and it just, ultimately it turned out for the better. But they have such a huge responsibility, and it makes a difference on who you see. And I'm glad they left and are seeking maybe legal ramifications for this doctor, because it's just not right, and we need care like anybody else does. And yeah, just ugh, gross. Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah. Switching gears to a twink who's gone viral on TikTok. He's reignited the debate over monogamy versus open relationship. He's kind of hilarious. Clarkson Lawson is his name. He's 26, based in Florida. He said the men who particularly irked him were those who suggested the relationship was superior when talking about open relationships, or more evolved than those that conform to heteronormative traditions. Quote, don't sit here and act like you reinvented the wheel because you let someone else sleep with your boyfriend, he said. Sassy Wiz. Lawson goes on to argue that sex is a primal urge, and that what separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom and Neanderthals is being able to not act on primary urges when it is in our best interest. So no, having an open relationship is not the next step in evolution. It's actually regressing. He then criticized couples who argue that sex is not the defining factor of their relationship. This is very easily debunked, he said. Your relationship is defined by sex because you cannot give it up with other people in order to be in a relationship. He went on, and it was really fun to watch. I may post this on tags because it was fun to see him go off. But at
Send it
the
to
end of
me for sure.
he ultimately said at the end of it that, hey, do you, and if it's working out for you, do you. But in hearing this over the weekend, I was talking about my after party, and I didn't realize at the time, but there was a couple of couples that were here at the party. One in which they were sexy guys, very built guys, and one of them pulled me into my bedroom and wanted me to fuck him, and I kindly obliged. He had you would have loved his ass, Jeremy. It was like fat ass, and he took it well. But then I knew his boyfriend was in the other room, who was huge, this big guy, and I was like, oh, and I already thought he was giving me the evil eye in one way, shape, or form. And I was like, he was bigger than me, and I'm like, please, are you sure this is okay? He's like, no, we're open, it's cool. When I came out, I don't know, the guy was wondering where his boyfriend was, and I was a little, but they
Uh-oh.
seemed okay. And then later, I was having fun with the Russian guy that was tall and built, and we were having fun, only to find out that his boyfriend was also in the room too, another 6'2" guy that my friend was playing with. And I'm like, you guys are boyfriends? Well, I wanted the one guy to stay over, and they were talking in Russian at the end, and my friend and I were looking at them like they were definitely going through it at whatever time it was, like, you're not going to do this, or, and me and my friend were just looking at him like, okay, couples, like, when it comes down to
Ooh.
it, it can get a little sticky, and I don't want to be in between all this. Does Jeremy, this TikToker, have a point on the craziness that can be open relationships?
I think he does. I mean, I think that I always say whatever works for you or makes you happy is what you should do, but I am a firm believer that communication is key. So I think that as long as you try and stay on the same page with your partner, it usually will lead to like you being able to have fun, but also keeping your partner like informed at the same time. And I think I know that it's a lot easier said than done to do that because in certain situations they're not as comfortable to discuss with your partner. But I think that if you can control your urges and talk about them even in the moment with your partner, it just makes better for everyone's happiness. And I think that you have to be upfront about what you want or what you're looking for, or like what you're not getting at home in the relationship, or whatever you may just want to try out and test out, like testing the waters of seeing how it is to add a third to your relationship, or doing your own thing on the side. And then the terms of like, are you going to tell the details, or do you not want to talk about any of the details and all that stuff. I think creating those boundaries and knowing where each other stands is the most important.
Yeah, I agree with you. Communication is so utmost. We say it so much on this show, and to the point where he says that a lot of, in his opinion, open people that are in open relationships maybe have a more superior attitude. In other words, they feel maybe they're a little bit more evolved because as humans, we were meant to not be a monogamous. What do you say, Kodi?
I have definitely felt that stigma from people that are open. As far as me being a little bit more monogamously minded, I think that they think, well, have felt that they think that they crack the code. Basically, they are more evolved. They don't let jealousy take control of them. And I don't know if I'm not in their body. I can't say if that's true or not true, but I had definitely felt that way. And I think that people should just do what makes them comfortable. If I am more of a monogamous person, I don't see how me being a more of a monogamous person should affect you. I think you should do whatever you want to do. And as long as it's working for you, that is perfectly fine. I may not want to share my boyfriend, but I might want to share your boyfriend for sure. And and I was thinking the other day, maybe just yesterday, and I thought to myself, I may not be able to open up my relationship to people outside of the relationship, but I think I could actually do a throuple where you have three partners and you're all in love and you just have sex with each other. I think that I might be
Oh,
built for that. I know, right? I thought to myself, could I do that? And I said, yes, I could do that. So if there are any couples out there that are adding a third, call me, okay?
you're taking applications. The casting is real. Love it.
Amen.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I have definitely come full circle on a lot of these topics because we've been talking about it we're about to celebrate 7 years of podcasting. So this topic is not new to us. And I definitely have come in more probably of the polyamory side of it all. In other words, the open is one thing. Polyamorous is maybe having more than one love and have kind of a
Hmm.
relationship. And it's just because I've seen it. We've had guests on our show, and the open relationships that I've seen, they can come in so many different varieties and packages. So, for example, over the weekend, it was two open relationships in the same apartment at the after party, playing with different people. I've been with guys that where we've played together as a threesome. There's ones that I don't want to see that. It's, they're okay with it when it's outside of, in other words, they're not playing together. And so it's layered. And I just think, maybe I could handle it, but I'm just trying to date and see, have some meaningful relationships if I'm into you at this point in my life. We'll get
If
to
I can
that.
stand one person.
Yeah, exactly. I know, right? I mean, yeah, so it's interesting, but I love this guy. Was funny. I thought I was going to be when I read the headline of it. I thought I was going to be turned off by him, the TikToker. I actually liked Clarkson Lawson. I liked his whole viewpoint. So kudos to you. And lastly, gay men have been naming their red flags in the dating world that are deal breakers, and a lot of people were saying things that lack of empathy, low emotional intelligence, and inability to admit mistakes, poor communication skills. Those are high on my list. Others wrote things like hating on femme gays, accusing them of attention seekers, hating on masked gays, accusing them of having internalized homophobia. Both of those can be true, of course, and things like they can't be platonic friends with other gay men. Somebody else said an obsession with aesthetic of a relationship rather than finding out if we're compatible. You could imagine the list went on and on of who is compatible and who is not. Red flags are kind of a big deal. I'll read you this one and then I want to hear from you. This is related. It was a recent Reddit thread, and they wrote, "Am I wrong for dumping someone over this? So I have been seeing a guy for about 3 months. We aren't officially in a relationship, but we were talking romantically only to each other, and things are getting serious. Now he has always put shirtless gym selfies of himself on his Snapchat after he worked out. He didn't have a problem with that. However, the tipping point was when he recently posted an after gym selfie where he was completely nude with a towel hanging off his erect penis, making a joke to support his OnlyFans. Apparently, he doesn't have one, but he was just joking around. I don't know, the person wrote. It just gave me that ick. I'm not a prude or anything, but I started thinking about what I wanted to bring, would I want to bring this guy to meet my parents? I let him know that I wanted us to see other people. I don't know. Why am I coming to Reddit for this? They wrote. So it brings up the question, first of all, Jeremy, what do you think about that? And what are some red flags for you when you've been on a date?
Well, I think about that scenario specifically that I kind of get his point of view. Like it would annoy me a little bit just after 3 months, but if the person already, when you first met them, was doing all similar things, I don't necessarily think that they're going to change that way because it makes you uncomfortable unless you tell them that it makes you uncomfortable and they care enough to change it.
Oh,
So I think it kind of makes it, there's layers to it because of the fact that you don't know how much that person cares about you until you tell them something makes you feel a certain way, and then you see their actions afterwards. So it's like a double-edged sword because of the fact that if he met this guy and the guy was doing this from the beginning, it's not really that surprising that he's still doing it. Maybe it's a little bit racier than when he started out, but it doesn't sound out of character for him, if you know what I mean. And he can't read your mind if it's something that either makes you feel uncomfortable or you just like him to stop doing altogether.
such a good points too, because in today's age, some people have online personas and social media presence that you don't know when you meet them. And I have dated people before where then you get their Instagram and either or on one side, maybe they don't do any of it. Like I've met people like, yeah, I'm not, they have no profile. They don't do any of this stuff. They're just not interested in it. And then I've dated other guys where they have a huge social media presence. And that presence often is not necessarily the person that I'm dating, it's their presence. I've had somebody where I've seen their content before where it's all over the place and it's suggestive. And I'm like, hey, you go. And then they've told me personally that one of the things they have and they're kind of working on is their narcissism and
Mhm.
narcissism disorder. And I'm like, hey, I get it. And so I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
react every time I see something that they do on there because they've been doing this before. It's really, how are you when you are with me? And
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I wouldn't want somebody to judge me and say, oh, I don't want to bring Steve home to meet my mom or dad because he has an OnlyFans. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't want to be judged that way.
Yeah,
So,
I completely agree. And I also
Totally.
think, as far as red flags go, for me, just one thing that I've noticed from like starting to date as of recent is like I really enjoy a good listener and someone that picks up on and remembers things that I've said and references them back. that to me is a big turn on, and it is so non-sexual. It's just really about someone listening and hearing what I say. And for like stupid little things like favorites or a favorite food or a store that I like, or just picking up on a story that I talked about. It's not remembering every single thing. That's not, but the red flag is like the fact that like someone that is always on their phone or can't give you like the time of day or enough attention. That for me is like a big deal breaker.
Absolutely. I
And
mean,
I don't go on and on and on. I think that it's a good balance of you being a good listener as well, and to have it in return. But for me, that's important in dating anyone.
it
Hmm.
speaks volumes and can go for miles with me as well. I'll never
Hmm.
forget, I had a guy that I'm still talked to here in New York, and I got in his car, we were going to go on a hike, and he actually likes country music and I don't, but one of the songs that was mixed in, because it was a long drive, was a song that I had told him about like a long time before, and I'm like, wait, is this my playlist? Wait, how do we get on this singer? And it's like not a popular singer or anything. And he's like, well, you liked it, and I listened to her, and I really like her too now. And I was like, oh, that
Oh.
like when I mean, I got miles out of that. I mean, it
Yeah, I
wasn't.
love shit like that.
Yeah, the fact that he remembered and he put it in his playlist, just I got a lot of mileage out of that. Cody, how do you weigh in on red flags or what this person was saying on his red flags?
Oh yeah, I completely agree with you guys. I think that you first of all, I am a huge supporter of thirst traps, and I will always stand by them. So I think that when this guy posted his thirst traps, the other gentleman should have known that he started dating a thought. He's not going to turn him into Mother Teresa overnight. So I think that he should just accept it and learn to at least tolerate or look at the positives as far as these thirst traps are concerned, because I don't know if you can change a person really, unfortunately. But as far as red flags go, I one thing that I look for specifically is how kind they are to like wait staff or other people that are just around. If they have, that really shows me how good of a heart this person has. And also something else that I look for is I go through their Instagram and I look to see if their friend group is diverse, because for me that tells me how how they are adapting with other people, and if they know a bunch of different people, it's a good sign for me if they know straight people, black people, white people, Asian people, all types of people.
Now, just a minute. Can I stop you really quickly?
Go ahead,
Because
go ahead.
I was with you when you said you might be dating as a thought. Is that how you say it?
A thought, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a thought. What are you talking about?
Right. And if we were to go through your Instagram right now,
I got
besides
it's
pictures of
just
you
me.
It
shirtless,
probably does not look like the most diverse friend group, boo.
we're not
It's
seeing a
just
lot of
me. It's just
Benetton.
me.
There's not a lot of Benetton ads in there.
United Colors.
Thank you. So
Who
I feel like you
where?
sort of contradicted yourself a little bit. I was with you until you said, that you go through their Instagram to see if they have that. I
Mine
don't.
is totally United Nations, so I think that that's funny that
So
that's
is
your point,
mine.
and yours is totally not that.
Well, in my defense, my Instagram is basically 99.9% pictures of myself. So you can't really see what my friend group is
Well, that's what
from
we're
my Instagram.
saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true.
So you're contradicting yourself because you're like,
No, I'm not.
oh, so I look for a thought and I'm a thought and I show myself as a thought. But when I'm looking for a guy, I want to see that he has a diverse friend group.
Well,
As
if
in
they
a
talk to
picture
me.
of his armpit and then his chest and then his ass.
I know. Well, and Cody, we love you. I mean, the one thing that I was with you was, listen. people's online persona, if they have it when you meet them, is, like I always say again, is not necessarily who you are dating. I put stuff out there that is, this, that, and all together, and it's not necessarily who you're going to get, like the real me in. And a lot of people do that. It's a social media presence. So I wouldn't be so quick. So this person to be so like, in my mind, a little bit judgy, and I wouldn't want to like have them meet my parents. It's like, really? I mean, is this a rom-com? And who's your parents? Like, I mean, name two older actors. I mean, it's just dumb, I think. And so I think that's silly. But I also would let some of them, their layers shine. And the more I would get to know them, hopefully I would meet some of these multicultural people and their friends. And I would see when I got invited to a birthday party, is everybody one look here? Are they all the same age? And how do I like fit in with all of this? Or do I fit in with it? I would do a little bit more of that, I think.
Yeah, well, if they come to my birthday party, they're going to see all types of people.
I like it. Okay.
you don't sound
not
convinced,
not just your crop top and your booty shorts.
Probably that too. But however, they're going to see a lot of different kinds of people too.
You will, and I know your friends, and absolutely. And yeah, and I just think, kudos for anybody that is out there putting themselves out there and dating right now. It's a tough world out there, but we give you credit and give it a second before you're so quick to judge them. But yeah. Okay, we want to hear from you on those matters, of course. Oh my goodness, so much fun, so much content. You can always follow my co-host. You can follow Jeremy on Instagram, where you will see a very diverse pooling of multicultural people. Follow him at @JRossLopez, @JRossLopez. Follow Kodi if you want to see the thought that he is.
Hey.
Follow him on the Instagram. Follow him at Mr. Maurice. He's also a life coach. Follow him at, oh my gosh.
KMD Coaching.
Thank you. KMD Coaching. Thank you so much. And my script blanked out for a second there. Follow me. I am _Steve V on Instagram. Go to my Twitter at TAGSPodcast, where you'll get a little sense of my OnlyFans. And if you are so liking to do so, go to my OnlyFans, onlyfans.com/sexy poppy Steve V. New content every week, guys. And in the meantime, continue having
hot
gay sex.